The rain pelted the windows of the black sedan as it pulled up to the modest neighborhood clinic in Busan. Kim Tae-min adjusted his expensive watch and took a deep breath. 20 years. 20 years since he had last set foot in this part of the city. And now he was back as the CEO of one of Korea's largest pharmaceutical companies, about to acquire the very clinic where his first love worked. "Sir, shall I wait?" his driver asked. "Yes. This might take a while." The irony wasn't lost on him. He had built his empire partly to prove himself worthy of the girl who had broken his heart in high school, and now he was here to potentially take away her livelihood. Success, he had learned, often came with a bitter aftertaste. As he stepped out into the rain, Taemin's mind wandered back to 17-year-old Han Ji-woo. Bright eyes full of dreams, gentle hands that had bandaged his scraped knees after soccer practice, and the soft voice that had whispered, "I'm sorry," the day she chose his best friend over him. The clinic's bell chimed as he entered, and time seemed to stop. There she was, behind the reception desk, looking up with the same curious expression she'd worn when they first met in the school library. Her hair was shorter now, pulled back in a practical ponytail, and there were tiny lines around her eyes that spoke of years of both laughter and worry. But her smile, that gentle, caring smile, was exactly the same. "Can I help you?" she asked, not recognizing him in his tailored suit and polished appearance. "Hello, Ji-woo." The color drained from her face as recognition dawned. "Tae-min. Kim Tae-min." He nodded, his heart hammering in his chest. It's been a long time. Chapter 2. Unfinished Business. The clinic was quiet except for the gentle hum of medical equipment and the distant sound of children playing in the courtyard next door. Ji-woo had led him to a small office, her hands trembling slightly as she poured tea. "I can't believe it's really you," she said, sitting across from him. "You look different." "Success has a way of changing people," he replied, then immediately regretted the bitterness in his voice. "I'm sorry. That came out wrong." She studied his face with the same intensity she'd once used to memorize difficult medical textbooks. "You're here about the acquisition, aren't you? Mr. Park mentioned that a pharmaceutical company was interested in buying the clinic." Taemin nodded. "Daejin Pharmaceuticals. My company." "Your company?" The shock was evident in her voice. "Taemin, you did it. You always said you'd make something of yourself, and you did." "Did I? Sometimes I'm not so sure." He looked around the modest office, noting the medical certificates on the wall, the photos of smiling children, the thank you notes from grateful patients. "It looks like you achieved your dreams too. You became a doctor." "A pediatrician," she corrected softly. "I specialize in treating underprivileged children. This clinic, it's been my life for the past 8 years." The weight of his mission suddenly felt crushing. He was here to buy the land, demolish the clinic, and build a research facility. Progress, his board had called it. A sound business decision. But sitting across from Ji-woo, seeing the passion in her eyes when she talked about her work, he felt like the villain in someone else's story. "Where's Min-ho?" The question slipped out before he could stop it. Park Min-ho, his former best friend, the boy Ji-woo had chosen over him. Ji-woo's expression grew complicated. We divorced 3 years ago." Chapter 3. The Complications. Taemin felt a mix of emotions he couldn't quite untangle: surprise, sympathy, and something he didn't want to acknowledge that felt dangerously like hope. "I'm sorry," he said, meaning it. "What happened?" Ji-woo was quiet for a long moment, staring into her teacup. "We grew apart. Min-ho wanted me to work at a prestigious hospital in Seoul, to build a proper practice. He never understood why I wanted to work here, with children who couldn't afford expensive treatments. He said I was wasting my potential. But this is exactly what you always wanted to do. Even in high school, you used to volunteer at the orphanage, help kids with their homework. You remember that?" She looked surprised. "I remember everything about you, Ji-woo." The words hung in the air between them, loaded with 20 years of unspoken feelings. She looked away, uncomfortable. "Taemin, why are you really here? Not just a business acquisition. Why are you here, in this office, talking to me?" He had prepared for this question, had practiced professional responses about due diligence and stakeholder meetings. Instead, he found himself telling the truth. Because I never got over you. The admission shocked them both. Jiwoo's eyes widened, and Taemin realized he had just crossed a line he couldn't uncross. That's not fair, she whispered. You can't just walk back into my life after 20 years and say something like that. You're right. I'm sorry. I should go. He stood up, but her voice stopped him. Wait, there's something you need to know about why I chose Minho over you. Chapter 4. The Truth About the Past. Jiwoo closed the office door and gestured for him to sit back down. Her hands were shaking as she poured herself more tea, clearly struggling with something. Do you remember the day of the college entrance exams? You were sick with fever, but you insisted on taking them anyway. Taemin nodded. I barely passed. That's why I couldn't get into Seoul National University, like you and Minho. That's not the whole truth. She took a shaky breath. The night before the exams, Minho came to my house. He told me that you had asked him to look out for me if anything happened to you. He said you were worried about your family's financial situation, that you might not be able to afford university even if you passed. What? I never said that. I know that now. But I was 17 and scared, and Minho was very convincing. He said that you wanted me to be with someone who could take care of me, someone with better prospects. He made it sound like choosing him would be what you wanted. Taemin felt the ground shifting beneath him. So you chose him because you thought it's what I wanted. I chose him because I was young and stupid and let someone else make the decision for me. Tears started flowing down her cheeks. I regretted it for years, Taemin, especially when I found out the truth. What truth? Minho confessed to me on our wedding day. He said he had lied because he was afraid of losing me to you. He knew that I loved you more than I loved him. The words hit Taemin like a physical blow. All these years, he had believed she had simply chosen the better option, the more stable future. He had built his entire life around proving himself worthy of something he had already possessed. Why didn't you tell me then? Why did you go through with the marriage? Because I had already hurt you so much. Because our families were involved, and Minho seemed genuinely sorry. Because I thought maybe love would grow between us. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. But it never did. Not the way I loved you. Chapter 5. The Diagnosis. 2 weeks later, Taemin found himself returning to the clinic daily, ostensibly to conduct due diligence for the acquisition, but really just to see Jiwoo. He told himself he was being professional, meeting with staff, reviewing patient records, assessing the facility's operations. But his board was growing impatient for a decision, and he was running out of excuses to delay. It was during one of these visits that he witnessed Jiwoo with a patient, a 6-year-old girl named So Young, who had been coming to the clinic for months. The child was pale and thin, and even Taemin's untrained eye could see she was seriously ill. Her mother works 3 jobs to pay for treatment, Jiwoo explained after the family left. So Young has a rare blood disorder. The medication she needs costs more than her mother makes in 6 months. What happens if she can't afford it? Jiwoo's expression was grim. Without treatment, children like So Young don't have many options. The public hospitals have waiting lists and the specialized care she needs. She shrugged helplessly. That night, Taemin couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about So Young's bright smile despite her obvious illness, about the way Jiwoo had gently explained the treatment plan to the worried mother, about the stack of unpaid bills he had seen on the clinic's desk. He called his head of research at 2 a.m. Director Kim, I have a question about rare blood disorders in children. By morning, he had a plan. It wasn't what his board expected, and it certainly wasn't what his shareholders would prefer, but it felt right in a way that pure profit never had. Chapter 6. The Proposal. You want to do what? Jiwoo stared at him across her desk, sure she had misheard. I want to turn this clinic into a research and treatment center for pediatric rare diseases. Full funding from Daejin Pharmaceuticals, but you would run the medical operations. We'd expand the facility, hire more specialists, provide free treatment for families who can't afford it. Taemin, that's incredibly generous, but I can't accept charity. It's not charity. It's good business. He leaned forward, his eyes bright with the same passion she remembered from their high school days, when he would talk about his dreams. We get access to real clinical data, the opportunity to develop treatments for rare conditions, and the chance to test our medications in a real-world setting. You get the resources to help more children like So Young. Ji-woo was quiet for a long moment. And what do you get out of it? The question hung between them. They both knew the answer wasn't purely professional. I get to work with you again, he said quietly. I get to be part of something that matters. And maybe I get a second chance to prove that I can be the man you deserved the first time. Taemin, I'm not asking for promises, Ji-woo. I'm not trying to pressure you into anything. I just want the chance to show you who I've become, and maybe figure out if there's still something worth saving between us. Chapter 7. Working Together. The transformation of the clinic took 6 months. Taemin threw himself into the project with the same intensity that had built his pharmaceutical empire, but this time with a purpose that felt personal. He was there almost daily, working alongside contractors, reviewing medical equipment specifications, and slowly, carefully, rebuilding his relationship with Ji-woo. They started as professional colleagues, discussing patient needs and facility requirements. But gradually, their conversations began to include personal topics, their experiences during the years apart, the lessons they had learned from their respective marriages and divorces, their hopes for the future. You've changed, Ji-woo observed one evening as they reviewed the final architectural plans for the expansion. You're more grounded now, less driven by the need to prove yourself. Being successful taught me that success isn't everything, Taemin replied. Money and power are tools, but they're meaningless if you don't have someone to share your life with. Is that why you got divorced? Taemin nodded. My ex-wife was a wonderful woman, but we married for all the wrong reasons. I was trying to fill a void that only you had ever filled, and she was looking for stability and social status. We were both settling for less than we deserved. I understand that feeling, Ji-woo said softly. Min-ho and we built a life together, but it always felt like we were playing roles rather than being ourselves. Chapter 8. Old Wounds and New Beginnings. The day before the new facility's grand opening, Min-ho appeared at the clinic. Taemin was in Ji-woo's office when the receptionist announced his arrival, and the tension in the room was immediately palpable. I'll go, Taemin said, standing. No, Ji-woo said firmly. We're all adults. It's time we talked about this properly. Min-ho looked older, his once confident demeanor replaced by something more cautious. He nodded politely to Taemin before turning to Ji-woo. I heard about the expansion. It's impressive. You always did have big dreams. Thank you, Ji-woo replied carefully. An awkward silence stretched between them until Min-ho spoke again. I owe you both apologies. Especially you, Taemin. What I did in high school was unforgivable. We were kids, Taemin said, though his voice was tight. Kids make mistakes. That's generous of you, but it wasn't just a mistake. It was a deliberate manipulation born out of jealousy and fear. Min-ho looked at Ji-woo. I knew you loved him more than you loved me, and I couldn't accept it. I thought if I could just have you, the feeling would change. Min-ho, let me finish. I've had 3 years to think about this. Our marriage failed because it was built on a lie from the very beginning. I convinced myself that I could make you happy, that I deserved you, but the truth is, I stole something that wasn't mine to take. He turned back to Taemin. I stole 20 years from both of you. I can't undo that, but I can stop standing in the way now. Chapter 9. The Fear of Trying Again. After Min-ho left, Ji-woo was unusually quiet. She went through the motions of preparing for the next day's opening ceremony, but Taemin could see she was troubled. Talk to me, he said finally. What's wrong? I'm scared, she admitted. 20 years, Taemin. We're not the same people we were in high school. What if we're romanticizing a memory? What if we try to recapture something that only existed in our imagination? Then we'll figure that out together. But what if we can't? What if we hurt each other again? I don't think I could survive losing you twice. Taemin took her hands in his. The alternative is spending the rest of our lives wondering, what if? I've already done that for 20 years. I don't want to do it for 20 more. It's not that simple. We both have complicated lives now. Your company, my work here, the expectations of everyone around us. None of that matters if we don't have each other. Ji-woo pulled her hands away, wrapping her arms around herself. You say that now, but what happens when the novelty wears off? When you remember why we didn't work the first time? We didn't fail the first time, Ji-woo. We were sabotaged. There's a difference. Chapter 10. The Opening and the Confession. The grand opening of the Busan Pediatric Rare Disease Center was a triumph. Local officials praised the innovative partnership between private industry and community healthcare. Medical professionals from across the country came to tour the facilities. Parents of children with rare conditions cried with relief at having somewhere to turn for help. But for Taemin, the most meaningful moment came when little So-young, whose blood disorder had been successfully treated with the new medications his company had fast-tracked, presented Ji-woo with a drawing she had made. A picture of a doctor with angel wings helping sick children. You saved my life, the 6-year-old said seriously. Mommy says you're my guardian angel. Later that evening, after the crowd had dispersed and the staff had gone home, Taemin found Ji-woo sitting alone in her new office, staring at So-young's drawing. Regrets? He asked. No regrets, she said. Just overwhelming gratitude. This center will help so many children. You've given me the ability to do work I never dreamed possible. We did this together. Taemin, there's something I need to tell you. She turned to face him, her expression serious. These past few months, working with you, seeing the man you've become, I've fallen in love with you all over again. His heart stopped, not with the memory of who you were, or the fantasy of who you might have been, but with who you are now. The successful businessman who chose compassion over profit. The man who remembered a childhood promise to help others and actually kept it. The person who gave me a second chance to do what I love most. Ji-woo. But I'm also terrified that I'm too damaged for my marriage, too set in my ways, too old to start over with someone new. Taemin crossed the room and knelt beside her chair. You're not starting over with someone new. You're continuing something that was interrupted. And you're not too damaged or too old or too anything. You're perfect exactly as you are. Chapter 11. The Obstacles. Their relationship faced immediate challenges. The Korean business world was not kind to CEOs who prioritized humanitarian projects over pure profit, and Taemin's board began questioning his leadership. Shareholders complained about the excessive funding allocated to the Busan Center. Competitors suggested he was having a midlife crisis. Meanwhile, Ji-woo struggled with her own doubts. The medical community initially viewed her position with suspicion. Was she truly qualified to run such an advanced facility? Or was she just the CEO's girlfriend being given a prestigious position? Maybe we should keep our relationship private for now, she suggested one evening after a particularly difficult board meeting. Until things settle down. Absolutely not, Taemin said firmly. I spent 20 years hiding my feelings for you, pretending I didn't care, building walls around my heart. I won't do it again. But the complications will work themselves out. The people who matter will support us, and the people who don't support us don't matter. It wasn't that simple, of course. The pressure from his board intensified when quarterly profits dipped slightly due to the increased spending on charitable programs. Ji-woo faced criticism from some of her colleagues, who questioned whether her relationship with Taemin compromised her professional integrity. Chapter 12. The Test. The real test came when Daejin Pharmaceuticals was offered a buyout by a larger multinational corporation. The offer was substantial, enough to make every shareholder wealthy beyond their dreams. But the new owners made it clear that they would streamline operations, cutting programs they considered non-essential. Like the Busan Center. You have to take the offer, Ji-woo said when Taemin told her about it. It's too good to pass up. You'd be set for life, and your shareholders deserve that return on their investment. What about your work here? What about the children we're helping? We'll find another way. We always do. But Taemin could see the defeat in her eyes. They both knew that finding another benefactor willing to fund free treatment for rare pediatric diseases would be nearly impossible. That night, Tae-min called an emergency board meeting. "I'm recommending we reject the buyout offer," he announced to the shocked room. "Are you insane?" his CFO demanded. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. For financial gain, yes. But some things are more valuable than money. Such as purpose, legacy, love." The board voted to remove him as CEO. Chapter 13. Starting over. 3 months later, Tae-min sat in a much smaller office in the Busan Center, working on grant applications and funding proposals. Without the resources of Daejin Pharmaceuticals, keeping the center operating required constant fundraising and creative financing. He had used his personal fortune to buy the center outright before his ouster, ensuring its survival, but day-to-day operations were a constant struggle. Some days, he questioned whether he had made the right choice. "Any regrets?" Ji-woo asked, bringing him coffee and sitting on the edge of his desk. "About choosing you over money?" "Never." He pulled her into his lap. "Though I have to admit, poverty is less romantic than the movies made it seem." She laughed, the sound filling the small office with warmth. "We're not poor. We're just financially challenged." "Is that what we're calling it?" "That's what I'm calling it. Besides, I have something that might improve our financial situation." She handed him a letter bearing the seal of the Korean Ministry of Health. "What's this?" "Read it." Tae-min's eyes widened as he scanned the document. "A government partnership. They want to use our center as a model for a national rare disease treatment program. With full funding for the next 5 years and the possibility of expansion to other cities." "Ji-woo, this is incredible. How did you?" "So-young's mother works for a newspaper. She wrote an article about our center, about how you gave up your corporate position to help sick children. It got picked up nationally, and suddenly everyone was paying attention to the work we're doing here." Chapter 14. The Proposal. 1 year later, on the anniversary of the center's opening, Tae-min took Ji-woo to the rooftop garden that had been added as part of the latest expansion. The city lights sparkled below them, and the sound of children's laughter drifted up from the playground they had installed for recovering patients. "Do you remember what you said to me on our last day of high school?" he asked. "I said a lot of things. Most of them were stupid. You said you hoped I'd find someone who deserved my love. I remember. I was trying to be noble while breaking your heart. Well, I found her." Ji-woo looked at him curiously. "Oh, and who is this lucky woman?" Instead of answering with words, Tae-min dropped to one knee and pulled out a ring. Not the huge diamond that his wealth could have afforded, but a simple sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. "Han Ji-woo," he said, his voice shaking with emotion. "Will you give me a second chance to love you the way I should have the first time?" Tears streamed down her face as she looked at the ring, then at the man kneeling before her. "Tae-min, are you sure? We've been through so much, and I'm sure that I've loved you for 20 years, and I want to love you for 20 more. I'm sure that losing my company was worth it if it meant finding my way back to you. I'm sure that every mistake, every heartbreak, every detour was preparing us for this moment." "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, of course, yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Ji-woo laughed through her tears. "You know, we're going to be the couple that everyone says took forever to get their act together." "Good. That means we'll appreciate it more than couples who had it easy." Epilogue. Full circle. 2 years after their wedding, Dr. Han Ji-woo Kim stood before a packed auditorium at Seoul National University, delivering the keynote address at the Korean Pediatric Medicine Conference. The Busan model had been successfully replicated in 6 other cities, providing free treatment for rare diseases to thousands of children across the country. In the audience, Kim Tae-min watched his wife with the same admiration he had felt watching her study in their high school library. He had returned to the pharmaceutical industry, but this time as the head of a nonprofit organization focused on developing affordable medications for rare diseases. After her speech, as they walked hand in hand across the university campus, where they had once dreamed of studying together, Ji-woo stopped suddenly. "What is it?" Tae-min asked. "I was just thinking. If we had gotten together in high school like we planned, we might never have become the people we needed to be to do this work. Maybe the detour was necessary. You think our 20-year separation was fate? I think our reunion was fate. The separation was just life preparing us for each other. As they continued walking, Taemin reflected on the journey that had brought them here. He had set out to prove himself worthy of his first love, only to discover that worthiness wasn't about wealth or status. It was about character, purpose, and the courage to choose love over convenience. Sometimes the greatest successes came not from getting what you thought you wanted, but from losing everything and discovering what you actually needed. Sometimes second chances weren't about recapturing the past, but about using the wisdom gained from heartbreak to build something better. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, your first love turned out to be your truest love after all.